Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of Kingdom Impact Lab with my wife, Tattoo, and in this video I want to share with you my own personal story about when money stopped motivating me, how that descended into my own personal meaning crisis. I had no idea why I was alive and what I was doing and how any of the stuff I did had meaning or purpose, how I came to a solution, and I want to attempt to explore this as a concept, explore the psychological mechanisms behind it, align this with what's said in the Bible, and if you've experienced anything similar or experiencing something similar, the goal here is to provide a framework for what the actual solution is. So very quickly before I start, the purpose of these, excuse me, I've got something in my eye. So very quickly, the purpose of these videos really is to help me explore and develop these ideas and concepts on a deeper level. I do not claim to fully understand them. My attempt is to go deep and to teach what I know with the current level of knowledge that I have, so I can steward my gift of wanting to learn and study and my quest for truth. So I can steward that insatiable curiosity for learning, growth, expanding my own knowledge in a way where I can teach and share the wisdom with other people. But my own weaknesses, which you'll probably see by watching the videos, the areas I need to improve is my communication skills. Honestly, I'm terrified whenever I'm in front of the camera, especially on film. Very self-conscious about various things, but you know, the more you do it, the better you become. I want to be able to talk through the ideas and concepts. So if anyone actually watches the video to start off with, which I probably aren't, which better for me, because I can make the rookie mistakes and no one's going to notice. But as I talk through these ideas, I'm doing the same way that Jordan Peterson does his lectures, and that the purpose is that I don't know where the video is going to go. It's here to develop my own understanding, and I want to bring you on the journey with me. So in this video, I want to share with you about something that happened to me, and that I know for a fact is so common in a lot of other people. And that is that you set yourself some kind of a target, let's say a financial target, and everything you do is aimed at chasing that financial target. We've all been there. The reason why is because if you don't have a goal that you want to pursue, essentially you're spinning in circles. So kind of business 101 is you need to have some kind of a revenue target, and you need to make money, and you need to have predictable profit margins to some degree, otherwise you're going to go out of business. So you have to start off with having a revenue target. So everything to start off with in startup is going to be focused on making an amount of money. You've got to invest into the business. Whether it's your own personal money, whether it's investors' money, if it's not money, it's time, and you have to put a lot of time in to make it work. And starting a business, you'll probably find that to start off with, and maybe even later, you'll get paid way less per unit of time that you put into it, compared to if you were working a normal job. And so it requires sacrifice, it requires resources, there's a cost right? Is what I'm saying. There's a cost to starting a business, and there's a cost to building a business and growing a business. And so, therefore, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I can't remember exactly what it is, but essentially the concept there is you need to first have food and water and be able to feed your kids before you worry about higher order things. So it's more important to feed your kids and to give water to your kids than it is to have a roof over your head. So, you know, parents out there, you would probably much rather sleep in a tent in a park, but your kids are well fed, than live in a luxury house and have no food and water and everyone starve to death, right? And then when you've solved the problem with food, you then focus on shelter. And then when you've solved the problem with shelter, you then pursue higher and higher goals, which would be around increasing the quality of your life, the lifestyle that you have, until ultimately you find that you have some degree of financial security and you don't necessarily have to worry about chasing money all the time. And that's when you can sit and reflect on what's the meaning of life and, you know, all of these high transcendent kind of goals. So in the context of business, your number one priority is to put food on the table. What does that mean in the context of your startup in the business? Well, putting food on the table means that you've got to generate revenue as fast as possible in order to make sure that it's a viable business, so you don't put all your money, so you don't waste all your money on something that doesn't work, or worse, you waste investors' money on something that doesn't work, right? Makes sense. So you have to build systems, you have to hire people to do it, you have to do whatever it is to sell whatever it is that you're selling. Well, okay, so the first thing you're going to do is focus on that 100% until you have achieved it. And so the first goal would be that you want to have some kind of revenue. You need the cash flow. Without the cash flow, you're using your own money or investors' money to pay for things. And then when you've got some kind of a cash flow, then you want to actually start to profit and then increase how much profit that you're making on sort of like a month-to-month or even better a quarter-to-quarter basis. And so the next level up is you've got cash flow, you want to increase your profits. And then you reach a point where you are getting a predictable and consistent amount of revenue per month. You're making however that is what you want to do. And so then you kind of reach a point of, well, what's the next goal? Well, the next goal then is going to be to scale your business. And then this is where you may fail, this is where you may struggle. Some people do, I know I certainly did, and ultimately I failed. But that's a different story. It led me on the journey to where I am now, which, you know, puts me in a fantastic position, at least I believe so, to help others that were in a similar situation to I was. And then you kind of, you're going to eventually reach a point where all your financial goals, you've achieved them. You've got a business that operates, you're doing whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you've got the lifestyle that you want. You know, you'll reach a point where chasing the next revenue target is no longer exciting. For some people, that may be a couple of $1,000 per month, or the equivalent of, say, $2,000 to $3,000 in your local currency per month. I certainly know people like that, and that's perfectly fine. For some people, it might be $10,000 or the equivalent in the local currency per month through your business. For other people, $25,000 a month. For other people, you may want to make $1 million a year, or 10 million a year, or whatever it is a year. But eventually, you're going to reach a point where the next revenue target that you're chasing isn't exciting. It doesn't motivate you. You're going to find yourself in a position where you can't justify the short-term, present moment stress in order to pursue the target of hitting your next revenue goal. you may very well find that, like I did, I hit a revenue target that I was after for probably 7 years. I hit it. Yay, great, felt good. Nice to see the money deposited in the account. But then the next day it all kind of falls down and you're back into the day-to-day life of, at the time it was with a 4 or 5 month old baby at the time who he was harder than our second child. He was the kind of baby where he always wanted his mummy. He never really slept, and when he was alone for the few minutes he was crying and just generally upset about things. And so it was a high maintenance baby. Our second one, the complete opposite, thankfully. And so the day-to-day stress that we went through, my wife recovering from giving birth, and then having an emergency cesarean section, which still hadn't fully recovered, 4 or 5 months in. Her body was going back to normal. We were struggling as first-time parents, sleepless nights, stress, all of these things. So honestly, I achieved my financial goal. It was great, yay! But then the next day it was back to the same routine, back to the same stress. That was it. No meaning, no excitement, nothing beyond that fleeting dopamine release that I've achieved a goal. The same probably happens for you too. I can give other examples out of my life, but for one, it's one of my hobbies is long distance running, and you set yourself a goal of running a race. You've got your target race in mind for the year, and then your entire training is geared towards that race, and then you do the race. It feels good when you finish it, but then typically what I experienced, and this is very common in other runners, is that immediately after completing the race, you get a bit depressed, you get a bit sad, you find you're kind of lost. And the reason is for that is because we find meaning in the journey. We enjoy progression towards goal. You probably feel the same way. What we value the most is we like to we get joy, fulfillment, and all of these other sort of the emotions that we want that we enjoy by making incremental progress towards a meaningful goal. So with the analogy of running, let's say you want to run your first marathon, and first marathon is a big deal. And so you set out on you train for 12 months to run the marathon, and then you run the marathon, and then you finish it, and then you're happy and you're excited and you feel accomplished. Where do you really find the joy? Well, you probably find the joy in the training. You probably find the joy in finding that before you could only run 7 kilometers, but now you've just run 42 kilometers. It's that progression. It's pushing yourself further in your ability. It's the growth. And running your first marathon is a meaningful goal. Now, let's say that you continue to do that, to run marathons, which not everybody does. And then let's say you reach a point where you've run your 20th marathon. Well, obviously, running your 20th marathon and trying to beat your previous time is not as meaningful as running your first marathon, right? So naturally, the training that you go into your 20th marathon in order just to knock a few seconds off your time lacks the same level of meaning as it does with the first one, which is a big deal, and everyone will celebrate running your first marathon because of a massive achievement it is. Covering the distance, but also having the discipline to do the training to do it. It's way harder to run your first marathon than it is to run your 20th marathon, because you have to go from zero, or where you're at, all the way up to here to do the first one, and then let's bring the first one down here. You don't have to go up the same steepness the same learning curve to do your second one as you do your first one. You've already built the base up, you've already built the endurance up. So as long as you continue running after doing your first marathon, your second one's going to be way easier. And then the third one's going to be easier still. And your 20th one is, when you're doing your 20th marathon, you'll have the attitude of, oh, it's only a marathon, which is normal. Whereas the first one, it was this massive mountain that you had to climb. Well, the point I'm trying to make is that it's progression towards a meaningful goal in the context of business. A meaningful goal when you're a startup is you have to get your first client. You have to hit certain financial milestones. And when it's the first time that you do it, it's a big deal. It's a big deal when you hit them for the first time. It's a big deal when you get your first client. It's a big deal when you get your first 5 clients. It's a big deal when you make your first 1,000 in your business, your first 5,000, your first 10,000, your first million in your business. Whatever it is that you want to set yourself a goal. But once you've achieved it, getting your first 1,000 is way more meaningful in itself to pursue as a goal than getting your second 1,000, and especially getting your 10,000. Likewise, getting your first million in your business is way more meaningful and significant than making your second million. Your second million does not feel as exciting because you've already done it. And the reason is, with my current level of understanding here, is that it's because you set yourself the biggest possible goal that you can imagine in your current position, with your current experience, knowledge, where you're at. Making $1 million a year is a massive goal. It's something that's unattainable, or it feels like it's unattainable. It feels like it's impossible to achieve. Likewise, going from someone that doesn't run to doing their first marathon, someone that just recreationally does a 5k run, to running your first marathon, it just seems like an impossible goal to start off with. It feels impossible, unattainable, so far out of reach. And then you make progression towards it, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, over a decade, and then one day you achieve it. When you achieve it, you don't have a massive thing to pursue anymore. You've achieved it. Going from 1 million to 10 million does not seem particularly exciting, or at least to me. Maybe it is for you, but not to me. If you're doing it just for the money in your bank, going from 1 million to 10 million is not intrinsically meaningful. It's just another zero on the bank. You've already set yourself a goal of 1 million, which seems impossible. You know, if you currently make, let's say if you start with 1,000 and then you go to 1 million, that is 1,000 times what you currently have. Massive goal, a massive mountain to climb, compared to going from 1 million to 10 million, which is only a 10 times increase. To put that into perspective, for someone starting up their company, setting your goal at $1 million a year, going from sort of nothing to $1 million a year, is the equivalent of going from $1 million a year to $1 billion a year. Intrinsically, when you're chasing money, it's no longer fun. It's no longer exciting. Likewise, setting yourself a goal of doing a marathon and finishing it is not as exciting as doing 10. So the core concept here is that we set ourselves the biggest goal that we can think of, that we can imagine, and it feels impossible, unattainable, so far out of reach in the present, but yet we are making meaningful progress towards it on a day-to-day basis. that's where we find joy. We can set ourselves goals on a daily basis, daily recurring tasks that we need to do in order to make meaningful progress towards what that goal is. From a biblical perspective here would be, this describes Jacob's ladder. Now, I'm not 100% sure on what the story is of Jacob's ladder as such from the Bible. Obviously, I've gone through it. I know what it is to some degree, but I don't understand the actual story on a deep enough level to confidently tell it here on this video. But what I do understand on a deep level is the application of what it means, and I learned this from Jordan Peterson, and I believe it to be true. It's true for me. I think what Jordan Peterson says is true. What this is based on here, where this is built from and why I think it's true, is it aligns with Carl Jung's, who was a psychologist, back in the 50s, 60s, I think, and you might have heard his name. He's a major figure that shaped psychology and stuff. And his concept is the existential hierarchy, which is that we need to pursue the highest order goal that we possibly can, and we need to sacrifice the shorter term goals in order to pursue the highest order ones, which is where we get meaning and purpose. This concept directly aligns in Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist in Nazi Germany, and he went to the concentration camps, and he went through all the terrible things there, but he managed to find meaning in his suffering, and he then developed logotherapy as a result of that, which is essentially teaching how we find meaning in our suffering. And in order to find meaning in our suffering, we need to have some kind of high order transcendent goal to aim for. And of course, all this aligns with what's taught in the Bible, with biblical teachings. So not my idea as such. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when I'm putting all of this together. And that's the foundation of what this hypothesis is, what this theory is, whatever you want to call it. So what is it, Jacob's ladder? So Jacob's ladder, from what Jordan Peterson teaches, is that you imagine like a ladder that starts at the ground where you are, and then it ascends up into infinity. At the top of Jacob's ladder is your transcendent highest order goal. And what that is, from a biblical perspective, is your goal to become Christ-like in everything that you do. Why is that so important? Well, to become Christ-like, by its very definition, means to become perfect, infinite, eternal. That's impossible to achieve. It's an impossible goal to attain. You cannot be perfect as a human being. There's countless reasons for this explained in the Bible, from a psychological and from just a logical, rational standpoint. But, well, no matter how good you are at something, you can always be better. No matter how much you understand about a topic and how good you are at a skill, if you have a humble mindset and focus on what you don't know rather than what you do know, nobody can argue that what you don't know is infinitely more than what you do know. You ask anyone that's gone down the rabbit hole on something extremely deep, and then you find that there's way more that you don't know than what you actually do know. It's impossible to reach. And so therefore, having that as your highest order goal, and anchoring in that as your identity, and this is what your goal is, it's something where you can make meaningful, incremental progress towards on a day-to-day basis. It's the big goal that you are pursuing, like hitting 1 million a year for the first time, or running your first marathon, or anything else. Except for you cannot achieve it. It means that you are continuously ascending up and up towards bigger goals. And every goal that you achieve, the next one is bigger and carries more intrinsic meaning. And you will never be able to fulfill your ultimate goal. You will never be able to reach your full potential. You will never be able to attain the unattainable. And therefore, it means that everything you do on a day-to-day basis is small steps, small incremental progress towards this infinite perfection, in a way that makes you better at what you do every day. You have a sense of fulfillment in your progress towards the goal. And when you achieve your goal, the next goal that you set yourself, because it's anchored in becoming Christ-like, infinite, perfect, and eternal, and therefore everything that you do carries intrinsic meaning, because everything you do is then a form of worship, and you're doing it for the benefit of others, for kingdom impact. Everything you then do, every decision you make, every time you act out of extravagant love, excellence, integrity, humble service, every time you become Christ-like in a way that you interact with others, becomes a step forward towards something that carries so much meaning to you on a personal level. Obviously, I'm talking to Christians here. Compared to chasing just money, the transactional sense, where you have the biggest goal you can possibly attain, and then maybe you do attain the goal, and if you do, then what? The next goal, the next step up, the next exponential goal that you want to set yourself. So you've made $1 million a year, you will now want to make 10 million a year. You exponentially increase. The second goal carries no intrinsic meaning other than you chasing revenue and money. You lose passion and excitement for it. Whereas if you flip this around and then you look at the same goal but through a biblical lens with the aim of becoming Christ-like. Okay, so you want to make $1 million a year. Why? Well, let's say you want to make $1 million a year because you have a core value principle operating way in your business where you want to allocate a percentage of your profits every year towards supporting kingdom impact projects. So basically, the more money that your company makes, the more money you can then invest into projects that you're passionate about, which can then have an impact on the environment, the community where you live. Well, okay. So let's say you're like me, and one of the things that I'm considering to do with my business, well, considering is it's something that I want to do, but things may change in the future because I'm in the early stages. But what I want to do right now at this moment of time is I want to be able to allocate a percentage of the profits that I make in my business towards investing into kingdom impact projects. So for me, it's going to be, I want to work with clients that have experienced a similar thing that I've experienced based on what I've described in videos, and then use the revenue from this to invest into a low-cost membership and to build a big curriculum and community with all support, so I can help people become Christ-like in all areas of their life, from their family, parenting, finances, work, relationships, health, all of these other things. Show them what it means to how to do it, what it means to be Christ-like in these areas, how to take these incremental steps forward, and how all of this carries intrinsic meaning. It'll just flip around everything you do from I'm doing this today but there's no meaning to it, to everything that I do has intrinsic meaning. I want the membership to be low cost to attract as many people as possible, but I also want to have a lot more people other than me as helping people in that community, so I can be the biggest impact to as many people as possible there. But obviously charging $10 a month is not going to be able to sustain it. So I want to use the revenue from my business to invest in this for kingdom impact. I want to use a percentage of revenue from my business to invest in various projects locally in Malaysia, internationally at a later stage, related to education, because I'm so passionate about learning and educating myself. So let's go back to the analogy of, okay, so you want to set yourself a target of making $1 million a year. Okay. So if you're going to allocate 20% towards your kingdom impact projects. And that's clearly defined as an example. It means that if you make $1 million a year, you're going to put 200,000 into your kingdom impact projects. Well, how much can 200,000 impact other people through what you want to do? Quite a lot. Well, then if you set your next goal as making 10 million a year, and you're still going to put 20% in, that then magnifies the 200,000 that you're going to use for kingdom impact projects to 2 million, which means you can potentially impact 10 times more people, or impact the same people in 10 times greater way, and then equip them to go on and, you know, do others, pass it on kind of thing. So all of a sudden, going from 1 million to 10 million has so much more intrinsic meaning, so much more reason to pursue it, rather than doing it purely for hitting the revenue targets. So I'm using that as just a point that by anchoring yourself and becoming Christ-like at the top, the pursuit of excellence in everything you do, excellence in character, excellence in ability, excellence in integrity, the pursuit of operating on extravagant love, which would be to focus on being the biggest blessing you can possibly be to as many people you can possibly be. It'd be operating on impeccable integrity. Before you can operate on integrity, you first need to root and anchor your identity in something that's never changing, like becoming Christ-like and Christian values. Otherwise, you risk of your sort of the anchor that you're putting your core values in is then likely to change over time. It's not stable, and then more importantly, your day-to-day emotions are then going to affect your decisions, rather than you anchoring, eternal truths. And then operating on humble service, where you do things for the benefit of others, and helping others will give you joy, fulfillment, and meaning to everything you do, but also then it prevents pride and arrogance coming in as well. And so that's what it means to operate in a way that's aligned with becoming Christ-like. And when you set that as your goal above everything else, as mentioned before, it's impossible to attain, and so you are having that incremental day-to-day progress of becoming more Christ-like in everything you do, which then makes you the biggest blessing to as many people as possible, which then gives everything you do more meaning and fulfillment and passion, and makes you more motivated and excited to do what your business is. And that's essentially why you anchor in becoming Christ-like as your highest order goal. That's the top thing that you want to aim for, and then you will make progress towards that until the day you die. And every single piece of progress you make, down to the smallest decision that you make today, has intrinsic meaning, and then that gives everything that you do a purpose. And that this video here explains why chasing money as your primary target does not work long term, and why having your focus here on what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if you find yourself in a position where you're no longer excited by revenue, this video explains why and what to do next. And the solution is you have to anchor your identity and everything you do in becoming Christ-like. That gives everything intrinsic meaning and purpose, and then you will be able to continue to pursue bigger, better goals. You'll be able to experience the joy of achieving bigger, better things continuously until the day you die, but you also having that eternal impact as well. Okay, that's all I've got for you. See you next time.